Hi everyone, welcome to Unscripted Coding. Today we're going to do a rare retrospective on something that failed. I have been working with Web Speech API for about an hour and a half, 2 hours now, and I think I'm about ready to call it quits. Before I go any further, let's just really quickly show you what it's about. If you click into one of these demos, we're playing with the Speakeasy synthesis demo from Firefox's Mozilla's repository. And what it is you paste some text in a box and you click play.
Enter some text in the input below and press return or the play button to hear it.
Now, obviously, that's very robotic, but you get to choose a number of different voices, and I swear, Microsoft Edge options sound a lot better. But I seem to have broken it on Microsoft Edge. I just cannot get it to speak, even the regular working demo, even though it was working earlier. This is sort of one of the reasons I'm giving up. The tools themselves don't seem very workable. They don't seem very stable, and if you go online, there are people complaining about how it's not working on Firefox or Chrome, and that it's not consistent throughout. But I wanted to show you guys quickly what I've been working on, go through some of the learnings, and also talk about what has worked and what has been very interesting. So, let's start with what the objective was. I had this web speech API, and what I was hoping to do was go on Reddit, use their API, and basically take some random Reddit thread and speak it out as if it was a conversation. So I'd go through and pick out each of these usernames and assign it a different voice. Now, if you're looking at Edge, they have, I think, hundreds of voices. Not all of these English, and frankly, if you choose some of these, they won't speak English properly or have a very odd-sounding accent. But nevertheless, the idea is you don't listen to a Reddit thread as if it was a book article or a novel. You read it as if it was a conversation. So each one of these people, I would assign one of the voices, and I would try and have them speak and create and speak in their own voices. So that was the view. And the very, very first thing I ran into, I wanted to keep it light. I wanted to just start with the demo, and this one is sort of what I was working on, but this is the speech synthesizer demo from Mozilla. That was just what you saw, and I was hoping to use that as a basis, because they have all the text, all of the code required to create the speech, fiddle with the speed, the pitch, and get it working. So, first of all, I was trying to get Reddit API working. And of course, you have cross-origin restrictions. You cannot just use Reddit's API, at least without authentication or some other options. Now, I was trying to fiddle with OAuth, but it became a project in itself. It is something that we'll tackle in the future, certainly very well documented, but that wasn't the goal of the project. So what I did was I was pasting the API responses. You can do it on your browser, but if you do it as a script, part of your JavaScript, you're not going to get the answer. You're not going to get the response you're looking for. So I was copying this into this box here. That was just a first step. I didn't want to get bogged down on what wasn't the objective of the learnings, the experiment. But what was also frustrating is I forgot just how difficult it is to work with the responses of Reddit. Now, we've done it before when we were analyzing all the posts in Reddit, but I forgot just how odd it is formatted. Because Reddit's built for thousands, tens of thousands of comments. And so what they've done is branched it out into trees. They slowly get more and more responses over time. So this is a very short thread I have here. But if you had thousands of responses, you might have a load more comments here and one here. And all of that is to say they are structured for speed and creating a tree and getting the main trunks of it, rather than creating that conversation I really wanted. So, it wasn't worth going down that path, especially since I wasn't getting things working. So I created a very basic transcript. This is through a dictionary, and you can imagine it's a list of people speaking. There's no branches, there's no tree, there's no real weird graph. It is person A, Bob, saying, "Hello world, it's nice weather today." It's kind of a very straightforward conversation. So that takes care of the Reddit side. I slowly had to work backwards. I thought, you know what, let's not paste the JSON file right in here. Let's not parse it. Let's not figure it out. So let's throw in a transcript. And this works wonderfully. If you look here, when I click the load button, I'm going to go through each of those keys, or each of those items in that list. I'm going to parse out who the person is and what he's saying. Very straightforward, very simple. The next bit we have is, of course, trying to get the voices. Now, I don't think there's anything horribly wrong, but what I did was I took all of the code that Mozilla has already done. They are taking text, they are selecting the voices, but more importantly, they are letting you select the pitch and rate. That's something that I'm going to keep in the form, and that was always the plan. The next bit is they have this weird thing where it asks the browser to give them a voice list, just populate the giant list of voices. If we go back to Chrome, you'll see that their selection is maybe 30 or 40 voices long versus Microsoft Edge, who has just an enormous list of voices to populate. Every browser is different, so you want to populate it accordingly. Didn't make any changes there. The next bit was that they do have a number of, I guess, listeners. When you submit a form, when you change a pitch, it's going to run these things. Most important of the features of the functions is the speak. When you speak, and I added these two parameters, they're going to look at what is in that input text. Let me pull up the Chrome again, Chrome browser. They're going to pull up what text this is, what voice, what rate, what pitch, and speak it. And in the same time, they're going to check on a couple errors. Is something already currently speaking? Is it over? Is there an error? And it's going to spit out that error in console. Now, what I found very strange is even on that clean, pristine, perfect demo, there were all sorts of errors that popped up. And even right now, my Edge browser, let's go to the actual demo, is not playing sound. It's not spitting out an error. Oh, I guess it is. But it's not playing out sound. It's not working like it's intended to. And this is a different error than I popped up before. Oh, and I think this is just because I've clicked it more than once. If I click one right now, there's no error. It's not catching anything, and it's not saying anything. So it was quite frustrating to work with this. But nevertheless, what I did was I took out the text and the voice so that we can alter it later on. How this works is it's going to create this speech synthesis utterance. You're going to load the text into it, then you're going to change a parameter. You're going to change the voice, the pitch, and the rate, or rather, you're going to set it, and that way you can start speaking. This is some last-ditch effort that I tried to do, create my own cue, but what's interesting is if you put synth.speak and you put utter this, it's going to start speaking. But this is a cue built into the web browser. So in theory, if you run this 3, 4, 10 times, it's going to take its time. It's going to speak. It's going to say the first thing, then the second, then the third, then the fourth. But this is where the problem started. It wasn't working as intended. It kept popping out this console error saying something's already speaking. And it shouldn't matter. It should add to the queue and move it to the back. Finish speaking whatever you're saying, then proceed to the next and the next and the next. Whether it's speaking shouldn't make a difference. Now this error should have no effect on the queue. It should pop up an error, but it shouldn't change the queue. What was happening and what I couldn't solve for is that when I created this speak, it would either pop up an error, it would either be the first thing I made it speak and it would say the right phrase, the hello world that I put up in the first one, or it would say that it's speaking and it wouldn't add it to any queue. I couldn't get this working on Chrome, I couldn't get this working on Edge. And so when I hit this error and I can't solve it and I'm looking online, and a lot of the blame seems to be on the fact that this is experimental, this isn't universal, that different browsers behave unpredictably and not consistently. This is when it's time to call it quits. And this is part of what's fun about building these tools, is that you want to do this feasibly first. Does it work? Can you build it? And you want to do it very simply. If I spent hours and hours trying to figure out Reddit API before throwing in some sort of test, I would never have gotten to this point. I would have spent dozens of hours trying to build this out, and then hitting a point where I realized there are things beyond my control that I can't really solve for. So, very disappointing that I couldn't get this working, but it shows you the kind of tests you want to do. Because I think we've all, as programmers, we all have these brilliant ideas, huge projects in mind, but it's important to do all these little tests, make sure that you have a path forward, that it makes sense, and figure it out from there. So, for example, I was on shaky ground about how this speech synthesis works. That's why I skipped all of this Reddit. Now, we've done Reddit projects in the past on this channel, and I was fairly certain it would take many hours to try and dig through all of that tree branching, but I think, and I knew it could be working. And there were numerous ways I could have done it. I was thinking an API, I was thinking of using Python in that backend, I was thinking of trying to actually just work with it, do the OAuth, do all of the logic behind getting through the branches. But at the end of the day, if other parts of your project isn't going to advance and are blocked, then it's not going to work. And for me, there are alternatives to this. You can use Python, you can use something else to generate the sound, but the huge appeal for me was having it built right into the web page, built right into a web browser. And this was such a critical piece that as I started wading through and having real problems, it isn't worth going any further. So, I hope that was interesting. I hope that was helpful because you have to see that sometimes you fail. All of these nice, neat tutorials online, there are dozens of hours and many failed projects before they get to it. And I wanted unscripted coding to be very organic, to hit into errors and mistakes, all sorts of problems along the way. And this is one that is out of my hands, that I can't reasonably try and fix. So, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you didn't like it, if you didn't like a lot of failure, leave a comment below. But if you did like it, subscribe. Leave a comment as well. Thanks for watching. See you guys next week.